So.
Hello, how are you? It's Wednesday at Celt Day. Welcome to this week's paper review. I'm joined by Thomas Lyons, the senior reporter, and Damien Donohoe, football expert and Rio commentator.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, so in this week's paper, it's, to be honest, it's absolutely packed with circuit court, which would be the more serious court cases that are heard. So we're not really going to delve into that, but there's maybe 8 pages of very serious crime, which we might make mention to later on, and it's the crux of the news in the paper. But there's also other stories. The front pages: Gardaí seek to put drunken people off streets earlier. That's we're going to just have a wee chat about that. It's a JPC recommendation from Superintendent Cohen, in which they're going to object to late licences from bars if that will quell the rising tide of assaults on the streets. On page 3, I believe, or 5.3, we've got the Quinn children say their family unduly their father unduly influenced them. And then also inside we have Bailey Burr letter lights must be penalised severely. That's a story about fly tipping in Baileyborough, and also Damien's got the picture up now for community called to protest Brexit chaos, and Thomas was covering that story, so we might have a wee mention of that. And in sports, we'll not dwell too much on the Dublin defeat, which a 5-point defeat in my mind, you could call it a draw, like that's pretty good, you know, to Dublin. But maybe there's lessons to be learned from the league, and also there's some encouragement too with the proposed new polo grounds that there's fundraising for initiative going for. So let's go to the front. Thomas, this is sort of a well-worn story, I suppose, to some degree, in that we all know that drink's a major problem in Irish society. But this is one of the senior Gardaí from the region. He's taken it a step further. There's a joint police and committee meeting held recently, and at that Jimmy Cohen basically he sounded like a man suffering, like a frustrated figure who's just had enough of dealing with drunk louts on the street. So like as part of this he remarked that people were drinking at home regularly before heading out, and then he's quoted as saying those premises are putting them back out on the streets. That is where a lot of assaults are caused. Then it is the Gardaí who have to deal with it. And he goes on to say that particularly the increasing trend to apply for bar extensions in busy times of Christmas, and that's leading to serious issues out in the street. So he said, if that continues, then it will be brought to the attention of the district court, and we'll be saying, how do you expect to get 300 or 400 people to get home? Mm-hmm. You know, so at late night, has he got a point, or is he just?
Yeah, look, I don't think anybody can.
Garda refuses to, you know,
do his
job. Like,
there is a problem in Irish society in relation to our attitudes to drink. I mean, that's a given. You look at courts, you go to any court list, and the largest chunk of a court list is taken up with public order offences, which are public intoxication, failure to comply with a Garda, threatening and abusive behaviour, and of course assaults. And all of those, in the majority of cases that come before the court, are down to drink, and it's happening over and over again. And you can imagine how frustrating
the vast
it is.
majority of those, the judge says that's very poor behaviour. Now here's a slap in the wrist, go do some community service and get on with it.
In a lot of instances there are people who find themselves in circumstances. There are people with a large number who come before the court. That happens, yes. And there are people who have problems that need to be treated, who refuse to acknowledge that problems need to be treated. But in a lot of instances there are people who it's a one-off. But the fact is that we have a society where a one-off happens to an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
And why is that? Is it down to education? And if it is down to education, which is my belief, why don't we have a programme in school of education? And I know there are programmes in school to educate people on how to drink, but they don't seem to be effective.
No. But, like, do you think that this is a contribution, like, trying to prevent late-night bar extensions?
Well, look, the problem is such And it's not just in Cavan Town. I know this is replicated in other counties, other county towns throughout the country, that the situation of aggravation after pubs closes and the throng of people who come onto the street is such that Cavan is not the only town where you cannot get a taxi because taxi drivers don't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
They don't think that, you know, the money I will make in those hours versus the abuse I get from people who are drunk is worth it. Now, if that's the situation, society has really got to have a good, strong look at it itself and say, okay, maybe we need something to be done with it. And maybe by standing in front of a joint policing commission, Jimmy Cohen is doing something that needs to be done, needs to be brought out and aired in public, and needs to be socially changed.
Well, he seems to be putting it back on the bar owner, Damien, and he's saying, you know, see if the application comes up before court, he'd be asking, how do you expect to get 300 or 400 people to get home after? Like, do you think that there is a responsibility upon the bar, the owner who is the person looking to make more money out of people drinking late? Is it up to them to try to provide some sort of minibus service?
No,
or
I don't think it is, for the simple reason that financially it's not viable for 90% of bar owners.
Yeah.
It simply couldn't be. And while I
Also,
agree with his...
I was just going to say also that notion of that you could herd 400 drunk people coming out of a public house into a bus and take them away. It's
You need quite a few cattle prodders, so you would. But if I write, I think in most large urban societies, what they generally try to do is stagnate the closing time so that you don't have an influx of all the drunk people on the street all at the one time.
Yeah.
And the idea of a disco bar closing at 1:30 while the nightclub closes at 2:30 while the pub closes at 12:30, I think that's a better idea. But provided the disco bar isn't holding all of the 600 people who come out from the pub to close and go on too. So it's got to be managed a little bit different. But I think Thomas has hit the nail on the head. It's a cultural issue. We've got to start to realise that, you know, I think the most striking part of what Sergeant Cohen is saying is people drinking at home then going into pubs, which indicates that they're not drinking to be social, they're drinking to get drunk.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I was guilty of it myself when I was younger, and it was part of it, but the idea that, oh gosh, well I have to get drunk because I'm going out tonight, that's something, I don't know where that's rooted in.
I think it's rooted in higher prices. That, you know, you can't get 2 pints for a tenner. Yeah, but so, you know, how's a young fella supposed to go out and enjoy himself? To his mind, drink is a big part of that, so he gets a quarter bottle of vodka, necks it in the house, and then goes out and can survive. Is the problem. Yeah.
Within his mind, he's associating the good time with being drunk, with being extremely drunk, or even just drunk. That we've got to the point that I think even, well, when I was growing up, it was nearly a courage issue that, after a few drinks, I'll walk up to any girl and ask her for a dance or whatever it was. You know what I mean? You have the courage to go and chat. And, you know, I don't even know if it's that anymore with the younger kids, because they've got so much social media that I think is far more accessible to talk to people now. But that was my excuse at the time when I was growing up, that, geez, if I wasn't drunk, I wouldn't have gone up and said hello to her. You know, so I don't know. I think it's a cultural issue that we need to change within Ireland. How exactly we do it, I'm not sure. But definitely, to drink to get drunk is the wrong reason for doing it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's sort of a related issue. Linda was discussing this, the editor, in her leader column. So, now these cases, because it's a circuit court on it at the minute, that's the more serious cases. That's it's not just you know, a one-off punch in the street between people. This is serious crime. Like, so, she just went through a lot of these headlines in the paper are related to drink now, but they're not related to people coming out of a bar. But here's just a sample of the headlines in this week's paper. Attacked couple over spilt drink, smashed bottle over man's head, prison for breaking neighbour's face, butcher put knife to wife's throat and threatened to kill, man lashed out like wild animal, guilty of smashing house and threat to kill. Like, that's just a sample of the headlines in this week's paper, and it's really grim reading. I'm afraid it's part of my job to read them all, but it's really bleak, and it points to, I don't remember a paper like this in terms of the seriousness of violence in such a number of cases. Now, we always had very serious cases, but it would be one a week or something. You wouldn't get that amount of madness in one paper. It speaks of serious issues, and in almost all of those cases, drink and occasionally drugs were a factor in a lot of those cases. So I think there is a cultural problem, all right, that does need to be addressed, but we've been saying that forever, and I don't know if we're any near to resolving it.
But the difference being that there's more money in people's pocket, there's more access to cheap alcohol. Well, I have more than I had when I was in my early 20s, okay. You know, and alcohol is probably cheaper now than it was when I was in my early 20s.
God, I don't know. Well, here we'll talk about the Brexit. You were covering just the latest on the Brexit. Now, we're not going to get into the tea leaf,
the machinations.
I'm trying to figure out. It's like today we believe there's going to be indicative votes in the House of Commons. That's whereby the Speaker's going to outline maybe 6 different options, and the MPs will get to vote on their preference on each of them. Theresa May says she won't be bound by these necessarily, but the MPs are basically looking for a way to say, well, I voted for this, so don't blame me for the mess Theresa May created whenever they go back to their constituency. It seems to be the plan. They seem to be the kingmakers, because
they've got this willy won't he sort of thing going on, as does Jacob Rees-Mogg.
DUP, will they, won't they?
Yeah, as in will they?
Won't they, won't they, won't
they? The thing about it is that there is a support there for May. That has to be acknowledged, and that although...
No, there's not a support for May, there's an opposition to Labour, is what is there. There's a fear of what they get if they don't keep May. It's the best
but that's in terms of like Tories versus thing. But I think that the DUP look at May and see somebody who represents their interests, whereas the next person who comes in mightn't necessarily have the same predisposition towards the DUP.
That's true. Well, tell us, what did you write upon?
Well, the focus of it was about the border communities against Brexit, and they've set a countdown clock. Now, obviously, the countdown clock has probably had to be paused until we have a new
summer countdown for Brexit. Yeah,
a new countdown
goes forward.
But they've arranged a number of meetings and protests that encouraging people to come together and to make their concerns about Brexit known.
That's why I wanted to talk about this. Whilst there's a lot of fear and concern, I don't think fear would be the right word, but concern about this in the border area. But do you see this registering on the streets? Do you see people going to the streets and saying, you know,
well, look.
And what do you say when you get to the street, because no one's listening?
Yeah, but there is an escalation of concern. Like, I mean, like in the last 12 months, Brexit, talking to people, just people in supermarkets, talk about Brexit, you know.
Yeah.
What other political issue do people talk about that is an international issue?
But do you only protest if you have an audience? Who is their audience? Why are they going to protest, and what's going to be gained from it?
Look, what is any protest about? It's about saying, look, this is something that's of interest and of concern to me, so I'm getting out and I'm stepping out, and we as a mass are.
Will you be there, Damien, as a man?
I didn't actually realise what was going on until I seen it in the paper, but it's definitely something, as it looms closer in my other day job, Brexit is going to have a huge impact on my business, and it's something that I always thought would be solved, and look, I'll deal with it if it doesn't. And now you're a week out and you're kind of going, okay, well, I buy a lot of stuff from the UK, how am I going to do that?
Yeah, your fuel laundering business shouldn't be discussed here. Anyway, let's move on to sports. I'm afraid Cavan had they had a reasonable performance, didn't he, against Dublin. Dublin always kept them at arm's length, really, like a schoolboy bully, and Cavan were swinging the fist, but there was no doubt that Dublin would win, but you could say that about 28 other counties in Ireland.
Yeah, probably so. Like I thought, to be honest, Cavan started brightly. Probably the difference being, and Mickey Graham alludes to it in the interview this week, just not finishing chances, not just maybe having the confidence to really put the boot through the ball or even to take on those chances. That's been a big issue for Cavan in Division 1, and it was against Dublin again. They created as many chances as Dublin did in the game, but Dublin just have such confidence in their own ability that they go and they execute them, whereas Cavan were dropping them short or hitting them wide. So it's something that I feel sorry for Mickey Graham and the management for the simple reason that to learn your trade at the very, very top level with a group of players who are stretched to be at that top level was always going to be difficult, and it puts, they say a good start is half the battle, it puts half the battle in jeopardy for Mickey Graham and co. And all I'm thinking of is that Cavan supporters, hearing them coming out and relegated, so what are we going to do, is he the man for the job, these sort of silly questions for me. The long term has to be holding on to Mickey Graham and co. Because he has a proven track record, and if you look at Tyrone, one of the top teams in the country, and Dublin, the other top teams, one of the other top teams in the country, there's stability in management. Now, I'm not saying all teams have stability in management, but 3 of your top 8 teams have managers that are there for over 5 years.
And even Mayo went back to what they knew.
Went back to what they knew, so it wasn't a huge change in it. People know what James Horn, the players know what James Horn wanted. So there's a big benefit to having stability, and I think that the stability that Mickey Graham can bring is important to hold on to. 2021 where I think we'll see, hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes right in between, we'll see Mickey Graham's learning curve, ability to adapt to the situation, because if Cavan go down, get back up again, he'll have the knowledge of this year. Whereas no Cavan manager has the knowledge of the top flight and then get a chance to reintroduce or get a chance to use that knowledge again. So
this isn't a serious discussion on removing Mickey Graham when he's not in a wet week.
Listen, it's a few, and I don't even think that they're serious about removing Mickey, but questioning whether he's the man for the job.
But isn't that instant gratification is the biggest problem with GAA at the moment? County teams who expect managers to deliver championships, even though they're just in the job, and even though they probably don't have the pool to achieve that. And people are on social media saying this isn't right.
So people are going back to an era when a manager could come in and by getting the team extremely fit, you'd have a chance of winning an Ulster title or a Connacht title or a Munster or Leinster title. Get them extremely fit, and you can achieve that in a small window. But that's gone. Every single county team is extremely fit. So throw that out the window. The next one was that you come in and you can make them highly motivated. You can
and highly defended.
Highly defended was the third one probably to come in, but highly motivated teams, like we'll say for example even Mickey Hart when he first came in, his team were extremely well motivated. They were chasing everything, shadows and ball and man, everything, and that had an immediate effect. But highly motivated stopped working when tactics start to come into it, and systems, and how do you work when the opposition are chasing you around. Well, you keep them chasing, you throw the ball about. Then it evolved into the defensive system of Jim McGuinness that tactically we're going to evolve. So all those things that had immediate impact, they're very, very hard to replicate now again. So I think it's definitely become in the GAA that it's a more long-term plan. You have to look at things in a 3+ year window.
Which brings us to the polo grounds.
Yeah, and an absolutely wonderful initiative by Cavan County Board. You can see the image up on screen there, where they've completed the purchase of land all around kind of Kingspan, Breffni area.
And is that more elevated than Kingspan? It's hard to tell from the photograph. Is that area more elevated? Because isn't Kingspan's problem that it's too deep, so it's prone to flooding? It
was. So essentially the pitch that's directly behind the car park here, that is going to be roughly at the same level as the stadium, but the pitch up above it, kind of at the L shape, is going to be elevated quite a distance up. I'd say you could be talking maybe 15-20 metres higher.
Right.
And then a third pitch coming around the back, it'll be roughly at the same ground level as Kingspan Breffni, but you have the river that meanders through the complex of Kingspan Breffni there that will take away a lot of that. But the big thing is, and at the launch, and as they say in the paper here, it's about getting grass to play on, because currently the Cavan senior team are training up in Abbottstown and sometimes down in Cavan. The underage teams are training anywhere they can get a pitch. There's no full-size training grass pitch that belongs to the county. You know, they're using a 3/4 size pitch at the back of Breffni every now and again, and it's just not good enough. So in order to catch up with these counties, this Polo Grounds Centre of Excellence has to be done. So it's a great initiative.
Is there an idea of, I know they're just at the fundraising stage, but is there an idea of when it might become a reality?
Yeah, well, they're going to do it stage by stage, and I think the first stage will be pitch 1, which is directly behind the car park, grass level. So get that up and going, get the floodlights onto it, and then go on to stage 2. But they're talking 2 to 3 years for the entire thing. They need to raise 2.5 million, and that's where the Win the Dream in Dublin 15 comes in. You can win a house for €100. So
and it's worth 375,000, you reckon?
Yeah. So it's a great prize, and it's a great initiative. It's been headed up by Alan O'Mara, and look, if Cavan can raise, I think if they can get to they're looking to get 1.5 million from the Win the Dream. If they can get that, they can, I think, get the 3 pitches done and floodlights on 2 of them or on 1 of them or something like that, and then the stand comes after and different facilities. But that's the plan within the next 2 years, to raise that level of money and get those pitches up and going.
Very good. Well, that'll be time in for the Cavan Miners, who got a good win this week over Fermanagh, who presumably they were shorn of their St Michael's players.
Of course, just to give it proper context. There's no point in Cavan getting carried away.
So they beat Fermanagh C. Did they beat
Could Fermanagh have a C? I don't know. They beat them and beat them convincingly enough. And what actually was interested in it, because I don't think there'd be any under 16s playing with the St Michael's team, but the Cavan under 16s, less the 7 lads who were on the under 17s picked up a victory of 6-22 to 1-7 or 1-4, something like that. It was an absolute a trauma. So the under 16s working exceptionally hard. I understand they're training at least once a week and maybe twice a week for the last couple of months. The under 17s under Gary Farrell, they had a tight game against Sligo in the first one. Donegal game was cancelled. Then they played for Fermanagh, obviously without St Michael's lads, but still could only be what's in front of them, and done very well, won that. So Sligo, I think, drew it or lost to Tyrone by a single point. Next up it's Tyrone for the Cavan Miners this weekend. So full match report in the paper from that game as well. Then you have the ladies football, which are there's 2 pages on the ladies football, where they beat Wexford at the weekend to keep their promotion hopes alive. They have Kerry and Laois still to play. 2 wins there guarantee them the top 4 spot, which puts them into a semi-final for promotion. The under 14 ladies have won as well in Ulster, and then importantly the handball. You can't forget about the handball in Paul Fitzpatrick Sports. Oliver McChrystal and his name, Young McKenna, his first name is eluding me, but they picked up an under 14 All Ireland A doubles title. So it hasn't been done by a Cavan duo since 1994. So a phenomenal.
Great achievement. His father used to be in my class, Barry. Well done, Barry and McChrystal family.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So there's details of that victory, and then picking up the Division 2 under 21 Spring League title. So that's in the paper as well. So it's jam-packed, mostly with Gaelic football, but why not?
Okay. Well, I believe, is there some Facebook attractions this week?
There is, yeah. You have the opportunity to win a €500 insurance voucher through Empire Recruitment. So get onto Empire Recruitment or onto the Celt Facebook page and see the link there to Empire Recruitment is like and share, and you can also win a spa treatment day or spa treatment collection with the Slieve Russell Hotel as well. So lots every week.
Didn't we do that before?
We did that. Lots of prizes every week on the Facebook Live or the Facebook page on the Anglo Celt. So get on over there if you'd like to win anything at all.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Cheerio. I wanted to put in a bit of trivia, but I forgot.